summary, last time we talking about dependent origination, and the the Buddha say is if this exists, that exists. If this arise, that arise. If this does not exist, that does not exist. If this cease, that cease. That's what the statement. But from that we can say the the dependent origination, talking about. Well, first I have to make disclaimer. This is for my reflection, my personal view. When I read the statement the Buddha say, and people will interpret differently. So from my point of view, last time we talking about there is two angles when you look at the statement. All of them say about conditionality and causation. And if you look at in terms of time, we look at impermanence. So we talk about impermanence is I think it's very important. It's one of the key concepts that the Buddha emphasizes throughout his teaching in Nikaya Agama. The very first discourse, we know the first discourse is, anybody know? The very first.
The turning of the Dharma wheel.
Right. It's about Four Noble Truths, right? It's about impermanence. And then the very last discourse before he entered Paranirvana is about impermanence. So he says, all things are impermanent. Strive your best to liberate, to reach liberation. So impermanence is very important, and that is one of the deep penetrating inside of impermanence will lead you to liberation. So that's why he emphasizes a lot. And anybody know the three marks of condition existence of conditioned phenomena? The three main characteristics. So we're talking about, if you look at conditioned object, right, conditioned existence, and you observe it over time, what you see is the object change. It's constantly change, but it's not just change. It's change in degradation. It's change in the cessation. So that's what it is. It's changing toward cessation. So one of in the Four Noble Truths, the inside of Canada is one of the first disciples have the insight. He say, on the subject, all things subject to origination is subject to cessation. That's his insight, and that's what talking about is impermanence. Impermanent is thing arise, it have to end. So the Buddha say everything, every conditioned phenomena, the process of all of them is start arising or born. Depend on you talking about sentient being. It's being born, and then it's changing through aging, right? Aging, and then through aging it's just sickness. And then at the end is death. That's the process of all living thing. And then even the non-living thing, we're talking about the earth or the mountain or even the building, it go through the same process, but we call it differently. We call it, you form, right, a house is formed, and then it's degrade, and then at the end it's disappear, it's collapse. So all conditioned phenomena go through the same thing, impermanence, and that is the key thing. I think everybody know it, you know it. You know that eventually you're going to die. You know it. You're going to get old. You know you're going to get sick. But seems like nobody bother about that. Nobody really concerned about that. We see, especially in this pandemic, right? This last two years, we see a lot of people die. People get nervous. I mean, they realize how fragile and how life is so impermanent, so short. But then when you look back right now, people go back to normal. Even though it's still happening, right? Pandemic is, well, at least the COVID is still occurring, but it seems, yeah, we're back to normal. And if you reflect back, the same thing, I'm pretty sure we have some close one die during the last 2 years. Not even like personal one, close one, maybe a friend, someone you know. It might not give you much impact, but the close one give you an impact on how you view life. But then people tend to forget. After short period of time, I mean, we tend to forget things. Maybe it's how we cope with life is by forgetting. I think. But if you think about, I mean, people like doctor, some people like deal with aging, like doctor, nurse. People work at hospital. They work with sick people. Doctor, nursing home. They work with old people, right? And then medical examiner. People work at a funeral home. They will work with that every day. But why there's not impact? I mean, that's pretty much it's become their name, natural. Anybody have any reason why? I mean, the Buddha says ignorant. I mean, that's what it is. We ignore to the very true nature. And is any reason why we do that?
Fear.
Well, yeah, anxiety, fear. Any?
A lot of people have unrealistic ideas. A lot of people my age, they may still think they're young or act like they're young.
Well, not quite. I think you might wish you be young, but deep inside you realize you were being old. You're closer to that. I mean, yeah, you might imagine you wish you be young, but I think most of the old people, technically, I mean, I assume I'm not old. I mean, I'm old, but don't let appearance deceive you. But yeah.
I was kind of thinking like the way some people dress. So you might have somebody who's kind of old, but they still wear clothes that are just inappropriate.
Inappropriate in what way? I mean, who's to say what's?
Because
But who's to say what you wear is inappropriate? That's just like a choice, a personal choice.
It's a choice. Well,
just because you're, 80 years old and you.
Well, we cannot speak for them, right?
Yeah.
But who knows? We don't know the reason. Maybe because they desire to be young. They wish to be young. By seeing their own age, they might wish to be young, and that's how they express their view. But it's the wish. I mean, you might wish to be young too. No? Well, that's good. That's what you maybe get closer to realize the impermanent. Be accepted of the impermanence. I mean, some people don't. Some people don't accept being dead, being old. And that's a very denial. That leads them to suffering. Um, so I think in a way, but then how we deal with that? I mean, we know the problem, right? We tend to forget things, we tend to ignore it. Let's take one example. In Vietnam, we have a viewing, right? When you have a dead person, you go and viewing, and what happened at the viewing? You talk about the one passed away, the past, the memory. But do you ever think that the very close day, I don't know how soon, but you will be in that place exactly like that? It's ever occurred to you? Anybody will talk about that during the viewing? No. They only talk about the memory, as if the dead is somebody else dead, and they never reflect it back on their own life. That's, I think, the difference between the Buddha when he see the four sides. I don't know whether you read one of the Sutra, and the Sutra tell when he's the very first time when he go outside his palace, and he see the three sides, four sides, and the side is the one that getting old, the old man, old people, and then the next he see is a sick person, and then he see a corpse, and then the last side he see is a monk. And when, if I remember correctly, and when he go back, it had dramatically affect him. And not unlike us, we tend to forget things about that. But for him, he reflect back. He say, it happened to them. It will happen to me. And I will suggest the same thing. And how can I get out of that? That's the difference between, the Buddha way, because that is the very thing that pushes you to searching for the answer. And I think a lot of story reflect on people realize on the impermanence that transform them about the view of life, and they change or they become a nun and a monk. The reason for that, I remember when I read one book about a nun. She used to work, either she an ambassador, I'm not sure exactly where she from, either from Britain, but she worked at the embassy in India, and I'm not sure she an ambassador or not. But one day when she sit in the car and she saw a young girl, when the car stopped, she saw a young girl carry a dead body of her brother, go to her car and ask money to save him. And for her, that's a shock, as it's like a waken to the fact of life. And after that, she abandoned, she resigned her post and become a nun. That's what her story tells. So the same side. So some people transform them. Some people, it's just the same thing. It's just normal. The same thing when my story, like when the first time when I say to my brother, my sister, is I want to become a monk, and I will go back to Vietnam, ordain there. And you guess what? What the first question they asked me?
Why?
Exactly why, and then what? What's wrong? It's not just, and why I'm become a monk. People come and ask the same thing. Why you become a monk? My brother say, what's wrong with you? I mean, there's something wrong, right? And for me, I understand. I understand because I in exactly that situation. Before that transform, I have the same thing, and the view I look is the same. I don't know why the monk want to become a monk. Even though we have roughly idea that they want to searching for happiness and enlightenment, but that's what our concept. But we don't know what motivate them, what the motivation. And most of the time, when some people ask me what's wrong, I say, what do you mean what's wrong? And they say, well, most of the time, I see is the monk is own people, so they see that I'm close to that. That's why they searching for happiness, or searching for the truth. You are look young, then either you are sick, some terminal disease, some sickness that you want to become a monk, or you have some problem with relationship, broken relationship with your girlfriend, something. You mean you must be suffering something that you become a monk. The reason become being suffer. That's what people see. The reason why you become a monk is like that. Well, for some or for most of them, yeah, maybe because they see suffering and they see, at least they see the truth about the reality of the suffering, and they searching for it. For me, it's different. For some other people, they see the side, like the lady, the nun, see the death, aging and death trigger her have a transformation in her view about life, searching for the truth. For me, it's different. So, yeah. So how we deal with that? And that is the key thing. I think the Buddha, there's a story the Buddha tell you, there is 4 kinds of horses. I don't know whether you heard about, if I remember Sutra. So there are 4 different kinds of horse. The first horse is when they see a whip or heard a whip flash, they start to run without waiting for the whip hit it. Well, the next kind of horse is, well, it have to wait until the hit touch its skin, then it start to run. And the third one is, well, the whip have to penetrate. I mean, it have to go deep in the muscle, really pain, then it start to run. And some is really don't do anything, or wait until it touch the bone but doesn't do anything. At least at that time they start to run. So what the Buddha implied? There are 4 different kinds of people. Some people just see some non-relative, some stranger there, and they trigger them, searching for the truth, trigger them, or motivate them to searching for the liberation. And some, until the very close one, relative, loved one, dead, then that start impact them. And I saw some people that they transform after the spouse death. They transform completely. But some it just doesn't have any effect. Some it's just like very time they lying on the deathbed. That's where they start consider, but it's kind of really too much too late for that. And some people never realize that. And I think that's why the Buddha, there is many different methods. The Buddha taught you about contemplate in terms about the impermanence, how you look and contemplate, think about impermanence, and apply to it. And remember, the last time when we're talking about your lifespan is as long as your breath. That's what one of the sutras said. Mindful of that. By looking or think about that, thinking about old age, thinking about sickness, people tend to turn away. I mean, aging old, aging sickness, and death is not a pleasant subject to talk about or to think about. And people, something they unpleasant, something they don't like, they like to turn away, ignore it, and that's by ignoring it, you don't see the truth, and that's what it keeps you in the same loop. And in fact, only when you look at it, when you examine, when you think about it, when you face it, then you actually see the truth of the nature, of the impermanence, what does it mean, and only then you will see the truth. And by seeing the truth, like you will see aging, sickness, and all the death is just unavoidable natural process. It cannot be avoided. I mean, things born have to die. That is the law side, the impermanent side. Is by see it, you more likely to accept it, rather than once you deny it and once you have to face it, because at the end you have to face it anyway. Sooner or later, you have to face it. If you don't deal it now, you have to deal it the later time when you lie in the deathbed, and that's where the worrisome, where the fear, anxiety come from, because you don't deal with that now. And by look at it right now, examine it, contemplate on it, then more likely you will see the truth, accept it. I'm not saying you embrace it, but you realize and accept it, and it may be easier for you. Well, that's, you used to be a doctor, right? They talking about 7 stage people go through when they hear about the new being, terminal cancer or the death. I remember it, not correct. 7 stage.
There was a lady, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she said there would be stages of grieving that people go through.
Right, grieving. So some denial is the first thing. The denial, they say, oh, it's not happening to me. And then some people have a long time stuck in that stage, denial. And look at us, we stuck in that stage, denial. It's taken them a long time to get over that stage. When they accept that, well, that is the next stage. When they get over the denial stage, that's next step, they accept it. They accept that's the new. They have to face it. The same thing. If you look, then you will see the true nature. It's more likely you accept it. Once you see the true nature of suffering, you will realize what it is. And we're talking about the first one, what is the first noble truth?
There's suffering involved.
Well, there is suffering. That's what it is. The Buddha, what I'm telling you is we go exactly like the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha says there's suffering. But then in the Sutra, we'll tell you there's Four Noble Truths. And you look the Four Noble Truths from three perspectives. So the very first, the truth is there is suffering. And then the next truth is you should understand the suffering. That's what it is. To understand is by looking at it, not by turning away. Because when you turn away, you will not understand the suffering. Only when you face it, that's where you see the truth, the nature of suffering. And that's where you face it. That's where the understanding. And then the next phase is the suffering has been understood. It's only when you face it, you contemplate on that, then that's the insight on the reality. The nature of every conditioned phenomenon is impermanent. And that's what is the first noble truth. It's by looking at it. And most of the time during meditation, that's what we tell you, is don't try to suppress them. Like everything arise, emotion, a thought, whatever, whether it's unpleasant or pleasant, you don't try to suppress them or deny them, make it go away, or not encourage by follow it. Like if something pleasurable, you chase after it, attach to it, but just by looking at it and see the true nature of the phenomenon when it arises, when it ceases. It's go through that process. And that's very nature of thing. You realize that's a nature of everything. That's what you do. I assume during meditation is what you do. You're observing what's going on to your mind, and not suppress, not reject, not accept or not follow, but just purely observe and think about that. That's what it is. And you will realize that by clinging, impermanence itself, in terms, some people say impermanence is suffering. Well, that's one way you say this. The very nature of, like we're talking about our life, getting old and dead, that's very old nature is suffering. But for me, the impermanence itself doesn't cause you suffering. It is the attachment to think that impermanent and you desire is not impermanent. That's very attachment, that's very desire, that's cause suffering. And that is the thing that you have to recognize. By observing it, and you realize that the very thing you desire to be impermanent, by its own nature is impermanent. And by desire that thing is impossible, that's its own is suffering. And only that, when you realize that, then you realize the cause of suffering. And that's what Buddha say, desire, attachment is the cause leads to suffering. That's the second noble truth. And when you realize attachment is the cause, and when you realize you attach to things that impermanent and make a wish is not, if not, once you see the truth, then you will have a right view. And start with the right view, you will lead to right thinking, right intention, and you will let go of, just by very own nature, have insight of the right view, you no longer ignorant. We are ignorant because we don't see the truth the way it is. When you see the truth the way it is, you no longer ignorant. So that's what is lead you to abandon those attachments. And that's when you abandon those wrong view, seeing the right view, automatically correct your wrong view. You no longer have the wrong view. And that's, I can tell, it will help you to abandon the attachment. You will let go the thing that you try to cling on. And by ceasing the clinging attachment, that will lead to ceasing the suffering, because you don't have the cause, then the consequence automatically gone. And when you don't have the cause anymore, then that's what you will experience the cessation of suffering. That's what the third noble truth the Buddha said. Is there's cessation of suffering when you abandon the attachment. And well, the fourth noble truth is how. That's what he tells you. So that's my view. I think, and that's most of the time we tell you, that's what the reason why we say meditation is important. In the very first lecture, is you observe the mind and you see the true nature of the mind. You see what you attach to. You see the true nature of suffering, the true nature of all conditioned phenomena, by using your own sensation, your own feeling, thought as the object of observing, to see or to penetrate the inside of impermanence. Any questions?
No, I don't know if it's a question. Maybe it's gonna be a question at the end. It's hard to speak for other people or to somebody else, like the conversation we had before about dressing up. But when I do think about, if we have to put an example of, let's say, stealing or or intoxication, yeah? So to me, I've been in recovery for over 11 years now, yeah? But it had to, I don't know, for the more I understand it now, they call it by the grace of God, that's what they say. It's like I'm not, almost like a miracle or something else. Because two people are getting the same message, or even before I got the message, yeah? It's not like I didn't want to stop. It's not like I didn't understand the problem. So I don't see how I'm really not seeing the right view or the attachment. I see the attachment, I see the right view. I still cannot stop myself from not doing the habit. Or
Right.
so. And I know probably this is a very short class you gave. So, but to me, when I get it like a short class like that, when I look with my ignorant mind, I think like I'm just giving a direction. It's supposed to be like a switch. Now turn it off. But then I can't turn it off. At the same time, the same mind, I know that I'm not practicing enough meditation, so I cannot say the meditation strategy is not working. Like if I start maybe with meditation 2 times a day, 3 times, maybe that would be the solution. But I don't do that. But yet I want to be able to just, like.
No, it's not easy to turn off like a switch. I wish. Because remember, we talk about habit. When you in habit, we talk about karma. Karma is habitual thing you do. And just think, how long for you to keep repeating that habit? It will take that much time to undo it. I assume, right? You take 11 years drinking and you assume one moment you drop everything. Well, for normal people, it will take that at least much time to undo what you did. If you're working on it, I assume.
Yes, it's 11 years.
No, I
But
assume.
it took as much time, you're right. I drank 10, took 11, yeah.
But what I mean is, some people have the expectation that they will immediately drop the habit, the tendency, that they build it up for over a long period of time. But they don't see that it takes about that much time to undo it with effort, with mindfulness. Try to do it, and
Quit.
and don't expect that
Good for
you.
you.
But the very first thing, like you say, the grace of God, is you realize it. That's a key thing, because you have to realize you're sick before you can searching for the cure, right? If you don't know you're sick, then there's no way you can searching for the cure, because if you sick and you think you are not sick, that's helpless. At least you recognize you're sick, then you are, I need some way to address this issue. And that's where you're searching for AA group, those methods. And they have a method, provide and help you go through the steps. So the key thing, yes, acknowledge your weakness is the wisdom. Some will say it's no. They might think wisdom is something dramatic, something tremendous. Have to be like knowing or understand complex things. Wisdom is realize the truth and acting on that. So wisdom is just see the thing arise and cease and know it's impermanent. It's the wisdom. I mean, it's not something like must be a deep, philosophical thing, deep thing, understanding. It's just very knowing that own nature, aware that, accept, know that is already the wisdom. And of course, we will tell you the same thing. Thing you attach. Well, the first thing is eliminate. Try to avoid it. Right? That's why in AA program say, well, get rid of all the alcohol in your house. Don't go to the bar. Don't say go to the bar, party, that drink. Well, that's the first step. You have to eliminate the source. That's the first. The source is not the problem. The alcohol itself is not the problem. The attachment or addiction to that alcohol is the problem. But the very first thing you can do is remove all the cause, the source that trigger that attachment. So that's why as the monk, we do the same thing. That's why we say all the monks start with remove all the attachment. Well, the very first attachment is your family, your property, your wealth, your title. Well, you drop all of that. That's what renunciate is. You drop all of those things, the worldly things, we say, to focus more on the spirit one, the other part. Well, there are other different methods. Go with that. But yeah, there is the step. So it's funny. I remember we talked about the man with 3 wives, right? Mm-hmm. And we say the man, we talk about normal people care so much about money, title and fame and the job that they dedicate their whole life to obtain that, to hold on that once they have it. And during that process, they create so many things to obtain it. and they create so many habits, or what we say, create habit of karma, and they don't know that. But at the end, for what? For nothing. Because you cannot take those things, money, wealth, title, friend with you when you die. It's just stop right there. But what you did during those process is the one that accumulate and go with you if you believe it. And just by going through the process of obtaining that, you suffering. Just imagine how much work, how much effort you have to put in to obtain the money, to maintain that job, and how much suffering you go through that. I'm not talking about suffering for other people, because you compete with other people, but the suffering you do endure to obtain that, and they don't see it. And for what? At the end, for nothing. And once you realize the impermanent thing, then you will realize it's easy to let them go. I mean, if you really mindful about that, well, that is part of a way to look at impermanence. Then you let them go much easier. Things might be more important for you. It might no longer that much important. Remember we talked about one lay person talking about a car, argue about what car he and his wife choose. I mean, you might think it's important. I mean, those people will think it's important. Their point of view, they're attached to that. But when you realize, well, what if your loved one are you dead the next day? Does that matter much on what car you pick? You will drop that issue immediately. The same thing. You might try a lot working hard to make more money, and once you realize the impermanent thing, you will spend more time doing things that you much care about. I pick one example. One lay person say, my parents come and visit me from abroad, and they're getting old. And I'm so worried. I mean, I'm so worried about their old age and their sickness and their death. So it keep really bothering him. And I say, look, why you think about that? Why you do it? By doing it, just spend time with them. Be a good son every moment. Instead of thinking about that, you will just get more suffering and get more attachment to those ideas. Why just be with them? Spend time with them, take them out, buy, provide them the thing they want. Truly spend time with them, and you will have no regression when they pass away that you wish you had time to do that. And most of the regression you is because you don't value what you have, and you more get stuck in planning with title and money, job. That's why a lot of parents, parent of the tragedy, the shooting, Uvalde in Texas, and when they lost their child, they say hug their children every night, but only when they lost the child, that's where they realize you should hug every night. I wish they realized that before, as their child may be gone. You don't know when. And once you realize that, you hug them every night. There's no regression. something it's just so I plan to
Yes, something?
yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate Sophia because 11 years, it's a very long time. And I'm sure it's very difficult, you know, because things like alcohol, tobacco, they're very addictive and it's very difficult to deal with. So I think something to be very proud of.
Oh, it's accomplishment. It's a
a
big
great
accomplishment.
Yes.
You know, the thing about it is like, then as you say, the more wisdom you get, there's more to work on. Because now that seems like that was not the problem, yeah? It's just now it's saying eliminate the bottle, so the bottle is gone. Now I face the true problem. And I'm like, oh boy, is it better to have never known to just be a drunk? Or is it better to, because it's more now. Now I have different attachments to different things and working through them, I have to be, because when you're suffering and you're intoxicated, it's almost like you're not really present for your suffering.
Mhm.
You're suffering in a different way, but when you remove it now, you really feel the suffering, I feel. Because I'm not used to feeling that pain, and it takes so long before, if you say you've been doing a certain habit for 10 years, so you have to go for a certain time, but in that meantime, until that solution comes at the end, it's a lot of suffering, a lot of judgment on self, you know.
How you do you using meditate?
That's why I
Using
say I cannot, no, because I used to do it 30 minutes every morning, and now I do sporadically. So the more I don't do it, the more I do the habit, the more I'm suffering. So
Can you say it again? The more
the more I run away from meditation,
Mhm.
the more I do the habit.
What habit?
Like if I don't want to like specify because I'm like in it, so I feel ashamed. So I cannot name it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you meditate, do you actually observe the suffering arise? Or how you deal with that? Like let's say a desire drinking occur, how you deal with that during?
So to me, when that was eliminated, I found meditation after. So I didn't use meditation for that problem.
Mhm.
You know, like you just said, I went to AA, I did the steps, and in one of the steps, like 4 years later, I was like, what is this thing they're talking about meditation? Because I understood prayer and I grew up Muslim, so I knew how to pray.
Mhm.
But I was in so much fear and so much suffering that the meditation called out to me, and I was like, okay, let me try this other thing. Then a lady brought me to the monastery. So then I started meditating every Wednesday at the monastery and at home. And all the other habits were normal. The more I meditated, the more I stayed in there, in that kind of lifestyle. Like before COVID, I didn't go back to my old habits. Then COVID came, I stopped meditating, then I go back to my old habits, you know, like, and a lot of my stuff is fear. I just said, I get it. I'm holding on the money, and I'm holding on the job, and I'm doing things which are not ethical and I'm not proud of.
Mhm.
But because of trying to hold on to that status, you know, hold on to my house, and fear of losing what I have.
Right.
So to do whatever it takes to keep it.
What I think I know it's very hard to face the suffering. Most, like I say, most people don't want to face suffering because it's unpleasant. It's really unpleasant emotion, and it drains your energy to face it. But without facing it, you don't really understand it. And that's most people is they turn away, don't look at the true nature of suffering. So I don't know. I don't know. I might suggest you that maybe you want to look deep, just like in meditation. When it happens, look at it and observe it. I know it's really hard, and see how it goes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm actually confused. Yeah, because I thought meditation is just blank the mind, trying to relax the body. But I'm hearing different things. That meditation is actually going to something to look at job, look at whatever that trouble you. So, I mean, this seems like contradicting.
Well, when you meditate, then will you realize that what trouble you will pop up in your mind.
Oh,
So we're talking about pondering thought. It happens a lot. Once you go more in meditation, you realize that your mind tend to like monkey. It like to jump around with thought. That's what it is.
oh,
So you think this subject, then it will switch to different subject. It's just jump around.
okay.
So, yeah.
I see. So, I mean, aside for beginner, first timer, that's what I'm trying to do, just keep blank. But as people that are more and more seasoned into it, they're able to block things or they're able to empty their minds, but something still keep coming. Those are the things that I supposed to able to see what troubles myself.
When you say something keep coming, what do you mean?
Like thoughts?
Yeah, the thought that, I mean, I thought, I'm not trying to concentrate on my breathing, trying to blank things,
Right.
trying to relax, and things interrupting. So what you say, okay, if this person practiced for 6 months, pretty proficient at it, but still whatever things that come to interrupt my thought, those are the things that, I mean, that is the next phrase, which is, okay, these are the things that trouble me. Is that what you're implying?
No,
I'm totally wrong.
no. What I imply is when. Okay, so usually I think next time when we're talking about Four Noble Truth, I will go over at least how I practice of meditation, because I hope by understanding why you do it, it's more easier for you to do it, and you know why. When the method here we say just let go the thought, not following the thought. Well, that's the word, let go, not following. That's the key, because at the end, eventually you have to let go things, let go the attachment, let go the thought. So we will go more, but I think when you have time, we go over like how you practice the meditation. That is easy, like answer your questions
Okay, yeah.
in
Sorry,
terms of
yeah.
that.
It's so
Just got confused, but yeah.
like I have obsessive thoughts. So my obsession of the thoughts is the same story. So to me it's very simple. I just see after meditating for a while, I obsess it, my actions also follow that thought. It's like a reaction. I see it. I just can't stop it.
Okay, so I can hear you. The Buddha, one of the sutra, the Buddha say right thinking, wrong thinking, and that will be the second in the Eight Noble Form path. Is right view. We're talking about right view. Start with the right view, and the next is right thinking, a right thought, a right intention. And at that time when I read the sutra, I don't understand. I mean, the sutra say, well, normal people like us, when we should not think, then we think. When we should think, we don't think. The right thinking is when you should think, you think. When you should not think, you don't think. When you should not think, you don't think. And when I read that sutra, I say, what the Buddha trying to say? But when later I realized what he implies is we thinking in the wrong time. The thinking that keep you attached more, you should stop. So when you have a thought arise and you elaborate more and you realize you get deeper in that attachment, at least you stop. That's what he means is stop the thing that you should not think. So that's what I recommend is if you thinking and it get you more in the habit, more attachment to that problem, first thing is stop, don't think. And if you keep thinking, then think, but think so that you detach from that problem. So like I give example about an argument between a husband and wife about pick a card, right? If you keep elaborate on, oh, you know, I want that way, why she not follow my wish, then you keep elaborate on your attachment. Well, if you don't realize that means you're not mindful enough. You stop it, then at least you think about impermanence. Say, why don't I look at different way? What if she's gone next day? Just a thinking, still thinking, but thinking the right thinking is let you detach from the problem, not attach more. By thinking that way, you look at different angle and you be able to detach from the problem. You see what I mean?
It's very hard to practice, but I see
It's-
exactly what you mean.
So that's require mindfulness. The mindfulness of you attach the problem, but at least recognize you have that thought. Because people tend not recognize they have a thought. That's why they keep elaborate or add more thought. Well, that's the first thing you recognize mindfulness is you recognize the thought arise. And if you not be able to stop, like once you practice, you realize you recognize the thought, then the thought tend to go away. That means when you're mindful of the thought tend to disappear. But because you're not mindful, that's why you add more thought. Well, if you're mindful, you stop that thought. But if you don't mindful, at least you proactive, you think something else. That counter that thought by look at different angle, so that you'll be able to detach from the problem. So like for your case, if you keep elaborate on that thought, think different way. Think the way that will help you to detach from the problem. Anything?
Daniel, you know you have something to say.
Well, I do agree with what you said before, Jen, that
But
about old people, in a way it's a bit unfair. It's a kind of discrimination because they don't want to see old people out having fun, in a way, because they don't have perfect bodies anymore, kind of. And it's not really fair. Old people should be able to enjoy themselves. So I agree with what you said before.
well, it was just nothing, but yeah. None of us are going to get any younger, that's for sure.
Well, there is another story I want to tell before we conclude today. Now it's a little bit over time. So there's one story I don't know exactly. So the Buddha stopped by a village and he talking about mindfulness of death, like contemplate on the death to the village people. And so there's a young girl in the village. She practiced the mindfulness of the death. She contemplate on that. So one day the Buddha go back to the village and he can feel, he can see that the young girl can attain the entrance level of saint and enter. So he wait. People gathering wait for his discuss, but he wait. Nobody know why. So because the girl is a daughter of the seal maker, a sewing, so she busy with helping her dad. But she took the product on the way to market. She dropped by the lecture hall, and she waiting outside because the Buddha sit there does his stuff. Then the Buddha recognize her, and he look at he look at her. But I mean, he look at the audience, but more like focus on her. Say, do you know? And she say, I do. I don't know whether it's correct. And he say, do you really know? And the girl say, no, I don't. Then the Buddha say, then you don't know? Then she, but I know. And nobody know what the Buddha and the girl talk to. So the Buddha say, ask the girl explain what her answer. So she say, when I heard the first question, the Buddha say, do you know? Because remember the last lecture about the Buddha asked the people contemplate about that, and she assumed that the Buddha say, do you know about that? No, that's why she say, I know. The second question the Buddha asked is confirm, does she really know about that? And she say, no, I don't, because I don't know when I will die or how I will die. That's what she mean, what the Buddha tried to ask. And the third question is say, then you don't know. It's implied that she mean is, and she say, no, I know. It's because I do know I will die. I must die. But I don't know how. I don't know when. That's what he mean is contemplate on that. It's when your mind full of that, you think about that. And that every moment you aware mindfulness of the death, that's help you in terms of liberate. I mean, make your life much easier. I'm not talking about liberate you, attain the enlightenment, but it will make your life much less suffering. Okay. May this marriage distribute to all living beings, find the happiness and the way to enlightenment. Namo Sakyamuni Buddha.